Marziali. All right. Now he's going to be telling you his story today. This is in conjunction with Mental Health Awareness Month. All right. So he's going to tell you his story. Now I want you guys to really focus up, pay attention, really try to resonate with some of the things that he's saying, and also feel free to ask questions when the time's available. Again, this is a once, I wouldn't say once in a lifetime, but this is a very unique opportunity for all of you. All right. So, Ralph, take it away.
All right. Well, first off, thanks for having me here, guys. My name's Ralph Marziali. Mr. Monahan's my cousin, my little cousin, my young cousin. And so the reason why he asked me to come here today is I went through a life-changing experience about almost 5 years ago. I had a double lung transplant. But just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was a hockey player. I went to Johnston High. I graduated in '92. Things were different back then from what you guys are used to today. But I always lived my life, battling. People always used to tell me, give up, go do something else. Hockey's not for you. I loved hockey so much that I always wanted to be a hockey player. And, fortunately, I had parents, they came from Italy, that allowed me to do that. They weren't hard on me. They said, follow your dreams, do whatever you want to do. They allowed me to, I didn't work, as a kid. I just focused on hockey. And like I said, people were always trying to put me down and saying, you're playing at the worst. Johnston was the lowest division back then. The way the divisions were set up, it was A, B, C, D, and then suburban. So Johnston was in there with North Providence, Pontiac, Smithfield, and we were the worst division in high school hockey. But fortunately, I was good enough where I always battled, and I was always invited to play in the Mount St. Charles All-Star game. I was inducted in Johnston Hockey High School Hall of Fame, most points in history. I ended up going on to prep school for a year at the Gunnery. I played a year in the USHL. I played a year at Salem State College when we won the whole thing, and then I turned pro. I never made it to the show, but I played in the minors, jumped around, battling. I played over in Germany. I played in Italy for 5 years, played a game for the Italian national team because I have Italian passport. So that's my background is hockey, and I always lived by three main words: discipline, determination, perseverance. And if it wasn't for those words and the way I was used to working hard in the gym and just battling, I don't think I would survive and be here talking to you today. I would have been dead at 46 because that was almost 5 years ago. So I retired from hockey in '04. And in 2007, I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called scleroderma. Scleroderma, what that is, it attacks your organs. It hardens the tissues around your organs and other things. And there's two different types of scleroderma. Mine wasn't as severe. But with scleroderma, 4 years later, in 2011, came pulmonary hypertension. Now, what that is, it's high pressures in your lungs. And the way that came about was because my right ventricle that pumps the blood into your lungs to get oxygen was narrowing because of the hardening from the scleroderma. And it was making it difficult for the blood to get into the lungs. So I ended up with pulmonary hypertension. Now, this was in 11. If that was 5 years prior, it would have been a death sentence. But because of the medicines that we had at the time, I was able to live on a couple different pills and some breathing nebulizers that I had to do every 4 hours. So I lived with this for about 10 years, from 11 to about 2020. Now, I have 3 boys. They're 17, 15, and 12. At the time, they were 6, 4, and 2. No, I'm sorry. At the time of my situation in 20, they were 12, 10, and 8. And I was coaching them at the Providence Hockey Club, 2 of the 3, and everything was going good. When COVID hit in 2020, obviously the whole country shut down. You guys remember that, we were on lockdown. I was home, I'm taking my medicines. Now, I was also about 275 pounds. I'm only 5'9", so I was up way out of shape. So everything was going against me. I have bad hips. That's why I have a cane. I need to get my hips replaced from all the hockey, which I'm going to do next year. So when COVID hit, it was kind of like the nail in the coffin. It was starting to kill me. So the whole spring and summer of 2020, I was in and out of Rhode Island Hospital, collapsed lungs. I didn't know what was going on. At first, I sneezed one morning and I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't breathe. I was freaking out. Now I have a sleep apnea machine. So I ran to my room. I grabbed the sleep apnea machine just to get some kind of oxygen. It helped, but it was bad. I don't know if anybody has asthma. Does anybody have asthma? So I'm sure you've had some situations where you can't breathe. It's horrible. Your heart starts racing, the anxiety kicks in, you don't know what to do. I took my shirt off, I was freaking out. I'm yelling at my kids, go get mommy. And fortunately, I controlled my breathing. It came to, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I called my doctor. She's like, all right, if it continues, you got to go to the hospital and see what's going on. So it passed. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. and I just couldn't breathe, and I freaked out. And I grabbed my sleep apnea machine. I told my wife, call 911. They called the ambulance. They came to the house. They took me to the hospital. Now, the whole time I'm gasping for air. Even the oxygen that they had wasn't strong enough. I needed like forced pressure. So when I got to the hospital, they did an x-ray. I thought I had COVID, but she came in and said, your lung collapsed. I mean, how does my lung collapse? Apparently, my lung disease declined so fast because of COVID. And they still don't know if COVID had to do with it, but I know it was, because you don't live with this for 10 years and then all of a sudden when COVID hits, everything's just going to hell. So they said, your lung collapsed. We got to do an emergency procedure. I don't know if you guys ever seen Army movies when guys, their lungs collapse, they jam a pen in their chest to release the air so the lung could inflate again. So they had to jam this thing through my ribs. It hurt like hell. And I was in the hospital. Now I'm in the hospital for a couple months in Rhode Island Hospital. COVID, everything shut down. I can't see my family. I'm waving to my kids and my wife through the window on the 6th floor. They're down there in the parking lot. I don't know if I'm going to live. I'm going to die. I don't know what's going on. So in and out of the hospital. I come home. I'm in and out of the hospital. I got these tubes hanging out of me. I got this special medicine that they gave me. They put a PICC line in my chest, and I'm wearing a fanny pack with this pump that's constantly pumping this medicine into my lungs. And once I started this medicine, you can't stop it, because if you stop, you die. So I had to always have a reserve bag of medicine, cold with an ice pack, constantly making medicines in the fridge, living like a zombie, can't even walk, no energy, because obviously when you can't breathe, you can't do anything. You can't walk up the stairs. I'm 46 years old and I'm like, this is it. I got 3 boys. What am I going to do? So I lived that whole spring and summer. Now, because of my hockey background, because I love hockey so much, I continued coaching. I was on the ice with these tubes hanging out of me. Nobody knew. All right. I had a pack pump of medicine. I had a tube, made sure this thing didn't get clogged, because if it did, I wasn't going to be able to breathe. Coaching my 08, which is my 12-year-old. I was coaching, it was, I don't know, squirts or peewees at the time. And then I was coaching my 2012, which is a first year mites. So I'm on the ice with these kids and I'm coaching. And so, like I said, everything was on lockdown. I don't know if any of you guys, you played hockey. So you remember when COVID was, we couldn't play against other teams. We had to stay within our organization and play. So important part of this, we were at West Warwick. I rented ice. It was the summertime to get my 08s on the ice. And we were leaving the rink, me and Dominic, my oldest. And nobody was there. It was nighttime. I was loading the truck up. And I felt something was going on. So I put the stuff in the truck. Dominic got in the truck. And now this is all on camera, mind you. I have the video. I opened the door and I was on my chair, my front seat, and Dominic was on the other side. And I just gave him my phone. I said, Dominic, you better call 911. I don't feel good. And next thing you know, you see the camera. I just fell back out of the truck, smacked my head on the pavement. You could hear the sound. It sounded like my skull cracked open. That's how hard I hit the pavement. And actually, I ended up with 5 staples in the back of my head. But the video shows my son get out of the truck, comes over. He's holding my head. His blood all over his hands. Now, mind you, you're a 12-year-old kid. God knows what's going through this kid's head. But he held it down. I'm proud of him. He called 911. He explained to them, because there's special instructions when you're on that medicine. They can't give me an IV. They can't put anything in there. You can kill me. He's explaining to them. I woke up. It was dark out. They wrapped my head. My son's sitting on the curb. There's cops. There's ambulances everywhere. And they're like, your son saved your life. So now I'm in the ambulance. I go to the hospital. My son, he was a strong kid. My wife said she picked him up at the West Warwick police station, and he didn't cry. And then when he got in the car, she's like, Dominic, it's okay. You could cry. And he just lost it. That's my son. I'm going to start crying right now thinking about it. But so I went to the hospital and, they started doing all this tests and they said that the scarring of your lungs, it's called fibrosis because of your lung disease, has gotten worse. That's why your lungs can't stick to it's called the pleura or something. I don't know the term, but it's a sticky layer that keeps your lungs from collapsing. Well, because of the scarring, my lungs wouldn't stay inflated. My lung doctor came in the room and said, we got to go get you evaluated for a lung transplant or you're going to die. Now, you hear those words, you don't know what to think. You're in a fog and you start thinking about your family and everything. I'm like, okay. So she said, because of your autoimmune disease, we got to send you to a special place. We can't just send you to Mass General, which is one of the best hospitals in the world. We got to send you somewhere that can take care of you because it's scleroderma and pulmonary hypertension. So they decided to send me to Philadelphia. So we had to do a road trip. We went out to Philly. Now, if any of you know about lung transplant, any kind of transplants, you need to get evaluated. They have to test you for everything. You can't have one thing wrong with you, or else you can't get on the list. Cancer, whatever, some kind of underlying condition. So they pretty much, you're like a guinea pig. They put you in the hospital and they do every test, colonoscopies, endoscopies, they make you drink stuff, ultrasounds, everything. And I was in there for about a week. I stayed there for a week. It was hell. But I got put on the list. Came home. This was in August. I came home. A month later, that thing that I had on for the collapsed lungs got clogged. I couldn't breathe, so they called me they rushed me to the hospital again. Now at this time, I'm leaving my house. I see my two youngest in the living room. I got the oxygen, and I said, "Daddy will be right back." I didn't know it was going to take a year, so I go to Rhode Island Hospital. I get there, and they say, "There's nothing we can do for you. Your lungs are like 2 bags of cement. You're going to die. We need to call a helicopter. We need to get you out of Philly." So they called Boston Med Flight. They pick me up, 2-hour ride. I never rode in a helicopter before. I'll be honest with you, I was shitting my pants. It was horrible. I don't like to fly, period, but being in a helicopter and you're in a stretcher with a little window here. I'm hooked up to oxygen. I'm looking out the window and I can see the Jersey Shore. That was the cool thing. So we get to Philly. As soon as I get there, they put me on, it's called ECMO machine. It's a life support. You're supposed to be asleep when they put you on this. What they do is they take these 2 garden-sized hoses and they jam them into your groin. It's the worst pain in the world. Now I had nurses holding me down, screaming. They jam them in there. What it does is it pulls the blood out, and the blood comes out like a cranberry color, goes through this machine. It's called an oxygenator, puts oxygen in it, comes back. It's like a watermelon color. It cleans your blood. Now, I'm awake through this whole thing. You're supposed to be asleep. So I guess that night, I just couldn't handle it. Anxiety kicked in. So they sedated me. They put me in a coma. And that's the last I knew. Now, for that time, you're only supposed to be on that machine, I think it's 25 days. I was on it for 23 days. They started calling my wife saying, listen, you better get up here. We're running out of time. We gotta pull the plug. And then I guess something happened where I ended up with, I went septic. I had 108 fever. That's incredible. I died. I coded. Because I had a blood infection, they took me off the list. So now my wife gets this phone call that he's running out of time. He's off the list. They think this is it. This kid's done. So get up here. So, 5.5 hour ride. They fly up there. I guess 10 minutes before the hospital, the medicine they gave me worked. My infection went away. I was stable. They put me back on the list, but I'm still running out of time. So I guess this is where God is watching out for me. Some lungs become available. Now people wait forever for whatever kind of organ they're waiting for. They might not get it and they die. One set of lungs come. The doctor didn't like them. Passes on them. Second set of lungs come. Doesn't like those either. Pass on them. Now the nerve on this guy, I'm dying and he's passing on lungs. But they think we're not going to go through this whole process, put lungs in this guy, and then he's going to die a few months later because the lungs are not good. So I get where they were going with this. Anyway, the third set comes, 8-hour surgery. They give me lungs. I wake up a month later. I don't know if any of you ever had a near-death experience where you died or anything like that? Has that ever happened to you guys? Okay, well, I hope it never does. But for that month, I was out of it. I went somewhere. I went to a place. I don't know where it was, but I remember I had some crazy dreams, and all my dreams had to do with oxygen, had to do with breathing. I was swimming underwater, trying to find air, bright lights, dead bodies underwater, crazy, scary. I woke up a month later, didn't know where I was. All I remember is there was a big wall of all kinds of photos and letters from the kids I coached, a big collage my family made of pictures of my family. And, I couldn't speak. I had a trach in my throat for about 4 or 5 months. I had to learn how to talk again. Every once in a while, they would take this trach out, put a little ball there, and tell me how to speak. But for the first few months, I was on a ventilator, and I couldn't breathe on my own. So the key was we had to practice breathing. So every day they would come in the room and say, today we're going to practice for about a half an hour. We're going to take this off. As the half hour gets there, you start freaking out. You can't breathe. You start ringing the bell. They hook it back up again. Anyway, I worked myself up to a tolerance. I got to 12 hours one day. It was unbelievable. And then after that, they said, you don't need it anymore. You can breathe on your own. So I passed the first thing, Took some months to do that. Now, also, when I went in the hospital, I was about 230 pounds. At this time, I'm 150 because I got a feeding tube for 6 months. I can't eat or drink. I got to stare at Coca-Cola or McDonald's on TV all day long, and I can't drink. All I got is a little sponge to wet my mouth. But I figured that out too. That stuff that you squirt in the water to give it flavor, those little flavor things. I had every single flavor you could imagine. I had them to bring me a cup of ice. I would squirt it in there, and I would get some kind of sugar. Then I started goggling Gatorade, cranberry juice, ginger ale, spitting it out. I couldn't swallow because my esophagus, which is part of the scleroderma, there's a little flap there, and that allows that keeps stuff from going in your lungs, called aspiration. So they were afraid that if I drank something, it would go in my lungs, it could kill me. So feeding tube for 6 months. Couldn't move my legs. They were doing tests on me. They said, there's probably a chance you can't walk again. They came in, they were sticking all kinds of needles in me. I couldn't feel my toes. I couldn't feel my legs. My wrist was like this. My fingertips were all black, I guess, because of lack of oxygen. I was a disaster. I mean, you could see in some of the videos of me laying in the hospital. It was awful. So little at a time, they started coming in, doing therapy, putting me on a flat bed. They used to pick me up with this crane. I looked like a tea bag. They would pick me up, put me on this bed, and then try to lift me up at a certain degree so the blood would go down. Now, when you're laying on your back for all these months, and then you try to go up, it's not good. So you can only do it for a couple minutes at a time. You start to get dizzy. So we started working up a tolerance. Then they started taking me to therapy, stretching me out, moving me. Started getting some feeling in my legs, a little bit at a time. So he said, okay, his legs are back. And about 4 months later, they come in the room dressed in these hazmat suits. I said, what's going on? Oh, you got COVID. I got COVID. I'm in the hospital. How did I get COVID? Somebody must have gave you COVID, a staff member. Oh, really? Now we got to move you down to the COVID ward. This is scary. As you're going in a basement with all COVID people. You're not in their rooms, but you got your own room. No windows. It's like a dungeon. I'm down there for 28 days quarantine. They've given me the medicine. I didn't have any symptoms, just a little cough, but it was okay. But you get new lungs and you hear you got COVID. The first thing you think of, you see people on TV, all the people in the hospital, they're throwing them out in the morgue. They're putting them in trucks outside. So I'm in the hospital. I think next thing you know, I'm going to be in a truck, in a freezer somewhere. I think I'm going to die. But I was okay. I fought through it. Then they started sending me to rehab down the street, this place called Good Shepherd. And at this rehab place, they decided to take me off the feeding tube and give me food. Now, when you haven't eaten for 6 months, you can't go right to eating. You got to start on purees, like liquid foods. They got to whip your food up. They came in the room with this big plate of steak and rice, and they giving me this whole milk. Now I'm starving, so I start eating this like an animal, and I'm loving it. I didn't know this stuff was going in my lungs because I wasn't supposed to eat whole food. Went in my lungs. A couple of days later, it's New Year's Eve. I'm on the phone. I can't breathe. I'm freaking out. I think I'm going to die again. They rush me to the hospital. They intubate me. They stick the tube down my throat. I wake up a few days later. My birthday's January 3rd. My family's singing happy birthday to me. I'm on the phone. I'm laying in the hospital. Just like a dead person. But this poster of my kids and my family you sit there and you think about what are you doing? What's life about? And you fight. And that brings back to those words: discipline, determination, perseverance. The hockey player in me, I just kept fighting. And I said, I got to get home to these kids. I can't die. I'm going to have some guy raising my kids. Some guy's going to be sleeping with my wife. What are we doing over here? Right? So I just kept fighting. And a little at a time, started getting better and better. The therapy. I couldn't move. I had no torso. They sit me up in the bed. I fall right over like a baby because all my muscle was gone. When you're in a hospital, you don't lose fat. You lose muscle. Okay? So, I was in there for 8 months, Philadelphia for 8 months. Then I couldn't see my family. My wife came up every couple of weeks. She would come up. Finally, my son comes up towards the end of my stay. They let my son come because of COVID. Get to see my son. Then we said, we got to come back closer to home. We got to transfer. So I transferred to a hospital in New Bedford called Vibra. I was there for 2 months. This place, everybody was on a ventilator. I was the only person in there that could actually do something. So they would take me every day to the gym. And that's where I learned how to sit up on the bed and get up onto a walker. And every day I would take another step with the walker. But now at this point, my legs, I have neuropathy in my legs because I was laying in bed so long that I have a drop foot and I'm still working on my ankle strength. So I'm trying to take steps. And I did that. I was in there. And then from there, I went to a nursing home in Bristol because I live in Bristol called Silver Creek. I was there for 2 months. Did some more walking, did some more therapy. Now I'm very heavy at this time because I started eating. So I went from 150 to like 250. I blew up. Now, if you're trying to learn how to walk again and you're heavy, not good. Came home 2021. The total time away from home was 11 months. And I started going to therapy. I had them coming to my house and I was going to outpatient therapy. I went from the wheelchair over the last 3 years. In this place I go to therapy, it's also my gym now. I went from the wheelchair to a walker. I cut 2 hockey sticks, the blades off. I started using them as ski poles. I was walking around the gym like this. Everybody knew I was a hockey player. And now I'm on the cane. Now, last year I lost about 95 pounds. I've been training 3 hours a day, that hockey player in me. And people come up to me at the gym all the time. They tell me I'm their inspiration. They see me in a wheelchair. They see me, what I'm doing. So they're like, if this guy can do this, and he's walking around with a cane, and I got abs now. I'm 51 years old. I never had abs. Even when I played pro hockey, I never had abs. And they're saying, if this guy can do it, why can't I? So I started saying to myself, I got to tell my story. So I started my foundation last year. And I've been doing, so I have some events to raise money. I got some charity beneficiaries, places like Boston MedFlight. The Gift of Life Foundation is in Philadelphia. That's where I got my lungs from. The Clyde Barker House, they house my family at a discount. These places all operate on donations. And then Brown University Medicine, which used to be Lifespan, they opened up a new Center for Advanced Lung Care in Providence. And I was their poster boy because they sent me to Philly. They want to have their own center here so people can start coming to get things done here instead of having to ship them away. So they put me in their newsletter and everything. So that's another beneficiary. So I'm raising money for these places. I'm also doing food drives. I'm doing a hockey equipment drive. If you guys haven't been in the hockey rinks, I got bins, West Warwick, Pawtucket, 146. People are dropping off their hockey equipment. I go pick it up when it's full. I disinfect it and I redistribute it to special needs hockey. There's a Providence Bears has a division for special needs hockey, and just trying to give back to the game because those are my roots. And then some of the money too, we're gonna try to get some ice time for these people. So that's my story about why I started my foundation. But the biggest thing is mental wellness. You guys, you're young men, you have your whole lives ahead of you. You're all going to be successful. You got to understand it's up here. What you want to do, it all starts with your mind. If you're tired or whatever, you have to tell your mind, I want to do this. I can do this. You want to be an astronaut. You want to be whatever, a lawyer, a doctor. You can do it. I don't give a shit how hard it gets. You just got to work at it. Because I was supposed to give up. Anybody else that hears my story, they say, I don't know how you didn't just give up. Why am I not still in a wheelchair like a fat slob sitting at home watching TV, having my wife take care of me? You don't. You got to fight. You got to put your mind to it, and you can do whatever you want to do. I'm living proof of that. I literally died 4 times in the last 3 years. one of the part of the story I left out was April of 2023 Easter. I had a bad infection. I was coughing so much that I made my bronchial ways raw. And because of my sleep apnea machine, you're supposed to clean that often. I neglected to clean it. I ended up with a bacterial infection in my lungs. I started coughing up blood. Now, I never coughed up blood before. And I was thinking that my lungs were coming apart because I'm coughing up blood. But it wasn't that bad. The next day I went to the hospital and I went to go do a CAT scan, and they made me walk down the corridor with the walker because I was breathing so heavy. The blood started coming out. They had to give me a bucket. I was filling up a bucket full of blood. It was like a movie, like somebody shot me in the back with a gun. The blood was just pouring out of my mouth. I couldn't even breathe. My sister was standing there next to me, and she's looking at me with this look on her face. And when you see the look on her face, you think you're dying. So I said, Nina, tell my kids and my wife I love them. I don't know what's going on here, but I can't stop. There's just blood coming out. So they admitted me to the hospital. Now, the hospital screwed up. They were supposed to hook me up to monitors. They never did. They just hooked me up to the antibiotics. The nurse came in at 11:30 at night. I was on the phone with my sister. And good thing she came in because my sister heard the whole conversation. And all you hear is, I said, I feel like I got to cough something up. And the nurse is like, it's okay, Ralph, cough it up. And the next thing you know, you don't hear my voice anymore. You hear, Ralph, Ralph. I was choking on a blood clot. So my sister hears code blue, code blue. The guys come running in. They start resuscitating me. They revived me 3 times. They busted 10 ribs to save my life. I woke up 2 days later in the ICU. I couldn't move. I felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. I said, what happened? They said, you died a few times. They saved your life, but they broke 10 ribs. Huh, okay, I'll take that. But now I'm in the hospital for 2.5 months because I can't move. I don't know if anybody ever broke a rib, but you can't sneeze, you can't do nothing because you're in the worst pain in the world. So my therapy, I was doing good, but now all of a sudden because of that, I got sent back again. And then since then, it's been, and I'm here today. I'm talking to you guys. So Mikey thought it was a good idea that I come out here and talk to you because you guys are all going to face things in your life. You're going to hit some adversity. It's normal. It has to happen. Nobody's life is going to go perfect. Everybody, you probably already faced adversity. And maybe some of you didn't know how to deal with it. And maybe some of you are on medicine. 1 out of 5 people in the world are on some kind of depression or anxiety medicine, which is normal today. You need to know how to deal with it. You can't give up. You've got to fight. Because if not, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't see my boys. Now I got my kids. I sleep downstairs. I got the whole downstairs for myself. I can walk up the stairs. I don't want to. I mean, I'm a little lazy when it comes to that, so I stay downstairs. My boys have their gaming stuff there. When I want to, oh, come over here, give me a hug. Come on, Daddy, get over here, give me a hug. I want a hug. I haven't seen you in 8 months. I wanted to hug you. I wanted to smell you. I couldn't do anything. Now you're here. Give me a hug. Makes the world of difference. And why? Because I was fighting. Anybody got any questions for me? I hope so. All right, come on. I just told you that whole story. Somebody's got to have a question. Come on.
So you mentioned that like 1 in 5 people are on some type of anti-anxiety meds.
I don't know that that's exact, but I read
I
that.
believe it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are. So what are your thoughts on? Do you believe that is what is needed, or do you think that is more like I don't want to say a crutch, but something that they might need in particular to get them over the hump?
Well, I think it's based on the person. I mean, a lot of people are not strong mentally. You know, people jump off the bridge all the time. You know, that's why I'm out there talking. But that medicine's good because it helps. It takes the edge off these people. They don't know how to deal with it. You know, I mean, I'm a strong-willed person. There's nothing you can't put in front of me now that I can't handle. I mean, I've been to hell and back 4 times. You know, I mean, I know how to fight. But not everybody's built that way, and that's not a bad thing. You know, I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's made differently. You know, but to answer your question, I think it's based on the person, and I think that medicine's huge because that could make a difference. That's why they have psychiatrists. They meet with these people. They put them on this medicine because they say if this guy's not on this, or this person's not on this medicine, they might be a harm to themselves or to somebody else. It's important, you know. But you could teach yourself. I mean, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. I don't know what it would be like not to have my mind. I've had this mind since I was little. I've always did what I wanted to do. When they said, Ralph, what are you going to prep school for? Just give it up. You're not going to play hockey. I went to prep school. I led my team in scoring. I was MVP. All right? What are you going to go try out for juniors for? I went out to Des Moines, Iowa. I didn't even know where the place was. This is back then when the USHL, it wasn't like it is today where it's a 16-year-old league. This back then, you go over there at 20, 21 years old. That was the biggest league in the world back then. And I went over there. The whole place was Minnesota and Michigan guys. 150 guys at this camp. Here's this guy from Johnston, the lowest division. He just called up. I said, "Can I come try out?" "Yeah, come try out. We have a summit thing. Just come out here. If you make the team, we'll reimburse you your flight." They put me up in a hotel for 2 weeks. Out of 150 people, I made the team. Now I'm on this team, but now this team's all draft picks. They're all committed D1 colleges. I'm playing fourth line. This is my 19. I'm 19. This is my year to get seen. So I wasn't going to say, I'm not going to stay there. So I told the coach, I said, "Listen, if you're not going to play me, I can't stay here. I can't waste the whole year." He said, "Ralph, I'm going to be honest with you. You're a good player. My whole team's stacked. I got to play these guys. They're already committed to D1. Half these guys are drafted. What am I going to do? I can't just put you in over them." I said, "Well, trade me." So he traded me from the best team to the worst team, Wisconsin Capitals. It was awful. I went from playing in front of 10,000 fans to 30 people in a frozen rink. So I said, "I'm coming home." So I went home and I played juniors in Massachusetts. But people were always telling me, "Don't do it." I did what I wanted to do because I know I can do it. I was outside practicing every day. I taught this kid how to play street hockey. I used to go down to his neighborhood. He was how many years younger than me? He's 6 years younger than me. I used to go to his neighborhood. I used to bring the net, the sticks, and everybody in the neighborhood would come out and play. Mikey, me and you, we'd take on the whole neighborhood, and we would win. And he was pretty good. And he was a basketball player, but he could dangle. You know what I mean? We would set each other up. But like you said, people tell you you can't do something, you go and you do it. You do it because you want to do it. You don't just say, "Okay, I'm just going to listen. I'm going to take the easy path out in life." No. You want to do something, you do it. Your name is Nick? What do you want to do?
I want to play college hockey.
Yeah? You want to play D1? So what are your plans?
Well, I applied to 2 prep schools, and I'm scoring 2 more.
Which ones did you apply to?
St. George's, Nobles, and Cushing Academy, Holders again.
I would say Tabor or Cushing, hockey wise. I don't know if it's changed, but that's how they were powerhouses back then. But you're gonna redo your sophomore year, or you're gonna finish up here and then go there?
No, I'm not sure. I'll either do 1 more year here or just.
All right. Well, if I could do it all over again, my junior year in high school, I led the whole state in scoring. It was 14 games. I had 40 goals and 28 assists. I should have went to prep school and did my junior year over again. I stayed my senior year. It was a wasted year. And then I did my senior year over again. If I could have go back, I would have redid my junior year and did 2 years. So I'm not trying to take away from Hendricken, but he should maybe do 1 more year and then redo your junior year and then play 2 years of prep school. That'll increase your chances to go in D1. I don't know how good you are, but I mean, if you're all state, I'm sure that a prep school would love to have you. You know what I mean? But your grade's good? All right, good. That's going to make a difference because you don't want mommy and daddy paying $70,000 a year for prep school. So they got to give you money. Any other questions from anybody? Listen, it doesn't have to be a hockey player. You could be any kind of athlete. This goes for anything. No, good question though. But I was on the road show, and afterwards, you guys take a card. You can look up my website. I was on the road show a couple times. The last time was in April, and he asked me what my plans are. My plans next year, next spring, I got to get both my hips done. So I want to try to get one done, and then after that, I want to get the next one done. So my plan is in the next 2 or 3 years, I want to be back on the ice. I want to start playing hockey again at a men's league somewhere, over 50 league. I'm 51, but it's like I think it's like riding a bike because my mind knows what I got to do. My body can't do it. So like I want to move a certain way, I can't. I got to walk with this cane. So once I get my hips done, I can start building my strength up again. My legs are like 50% there. My upper body's perfect. My legs, 50% there. So it's the hips that are stopping me. But I will be back on the ice again. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
So for the lung transplant, is that all anonymous, or do you know where those lungs come from?
Well, I wrote a letter so everything goes through the gift of life. And you can't talk to the donor. You have to write a letter. You can't even put where you live, or you just put your first name. You send it to them. They know who it is. They send it to that person. Now that person has a right to respond, or they don't have to. This was like 4 years ago. I wrote a letter. It took me a couple of years to write it. No, I'm sorry. It was my surgery was September of 2020. I wrote the letter in 22. It took me a couple of years. I wrote a nice letter saying, listen, I just want to know who gave me the lungs, the person, part of your family. They saved my life. I'm a part of them. They're a part of me. If you could, anything you could tell me about them. It was a nice letter. I never heard back. And I called the place a couple of times. I said, what's going on? They said, it's not uncommon. You know, sometimes it takes people time. Sometimes they might not want to respond. It might be too hard for them. Or maybe they don't even have anybody. It could be somebody that doesn't have any family. It could be somebody who just died. But I know this, that person died for me to live. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today. So I don't know. My wife thinks it's a man not that old, but we know that he went on vacation to Mexico because they did some kind of parasite test on the lungs before they gave him to me. And that's why she knows that, because they said he was on a trip in Mexico. I don't think he's Mexican, but he went to Mexico. So they test for everything when they do organ transplants. And that's another thing. I still don't know how they did this surgery. I never looked at it. I know you can watch videos, but it's not just your organs. There's all little veins and little bronchial tubes in here. I mean, these guys had to hook all that stuff up and make sure the blood flows. And the doctor that did it, he was from Santiago, Chile. His name was Dr. Bermudez. Now, this guy was like Jesus to me. He used to come in the room every morning, and I didn't even see his face because they had to wear masks because of COVID. And he had an accent. He used to come in and be like, Raphael, you know. And I used to love hearing this guy in the morning. He'd come in with a staff of 20 people, and they would go over the checklist and talk to me. How you doing today? This and that. And then 6 months later, I'm coming back from rehab, and they're wheeling me down the hallway, and I see this guy standing there with his white thing on, and I said, that's Dr. Bermudez. I said, bring me over there. So I went over there, and I said, Dr. Bermudez. And he turned around. He's like, Raphael, you remember who I was? And I just lost it. I just started crying. Like, this is the guy that saved my life. This guy had like hands from an angel. So I was just like, I was so overwhelmed. He's like, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah, I feel like crying right now when I think about it, because you don't know how that feeling is when somebody has your life in their hands. That was an 8-hour surgery. This guy had to stand there for 8. I'm sure he took a break and the other people did stuff, but my body was open for 8 hours. You know, they put one lung in at a time. You got the other one on the machine. I don't know how they do this stuff, but I'm here. I'm a walking miracle. God's got a plan for me. My plan is to come out and talk to people and help you. You know what I mean? If you give you some hope. I don't know if any of you guys had some issues going on before you came in this room today. You know, something, whatever it was, maybe some girl's pain in the ass, you busting your balls, whatever, I don't know. But, or you're sick, or you got something going on, or your grades, or whatever. But when you leave this room, it's not as bad as what I went through. And I'm sitting here talking to you, and I'm very happy to be here. So whatever you got going on, the way you walked in this room, I hope you leave this room with a different mentality. Like, sky's the limit. I can do whatever I want to do. Right? Anybody else? Mikey? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you guys. Go ahead.
We got 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry. The what? All 3 of those. I think the discipline from working hard on the ice, the perseverance, absolutely, and the determination just to keep going. I think all 3. You know, I spoke at the Smithfield High School hockey banquet in March, and I used those 3 words, and those kids understood. Like they know they know they're hockey players. Nick, you know what I'm saying? You know. Well, I'm always been I got him on my neck. I pray every night. You know, I don't go to church as much as I should, but I get there. Um, but I owe a lot to him. That guy he exists. I'm living proof that guy exists. So if any of you guys don't believe in him, you better believe in him. And I know this is a Catholic school. So yes. I didn't see heaven, but I went somewhere. I don't know if it was purgatory, but I went somewhere. For that month I was out of it, I went to a lot of different places. I had a lot of different dreams. And I still remember them all today. And they were scary. When I woke up, I was scared. I'm like, wow, I don't know what's going on. But There's absolutely, you go somewhere. You go somewhere. I didn't see God, and I didn't see the devil. So that's a good thing, I think. But I did go somewhere, and that's why I'm still here today. He doesn't want me yet. He said, get back over there. He said, get out of there. We don't need you yet. You got a lot more to do. You know?
What boys?
Thank you guys for having me here today. I think shut up. Did it shut up?